In this video, I'll be going through June 2017 paper 3 higher. It's a calculator paper, so let's make a start. So question 1, we have been given a Venn diagram to represent some information. A number is chosen, so complete the Venn diagram to represent this information. So this bit here just means universal set, so that's given down here. So the universal set, which is that there, is all the values that go outside. And then we have A, B, so we can label this A, we can label this B. If I get a different color out now. So outside are all the odd numbers less than 30, but then we've got some values inside. We can see both A and B have 15, so we can put 15 in there. And then we can put all the values in for A, so that's 3, 9, 21, and 27. And in B, that's going to be 5 and 25. And whatever's remaining will go outside, so outside will be all the other odd numbers less than 30, so that's going to be 1. So we've already got 3 inside A, so we can't have that. 5 is already inside A, so we can't have that either. So we'll have 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, and 29. So next one, the probability that the number is in the set A or B. So that's going to be all the numbers that are inside this. So that is 6 numbers out of 15. 7, sorry. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wrong pen. 7 out of 15. Moving on, solve the simultaneous equation. So if I write that out, that would be 3x plus y is equal to minus 4. And then beneath that, 3x minus 4y is equal to 6. So let's cancel these two out. So we have 1, 0. We can subtract all these because subtracting these two will give us a 0. We either want to make the x or the y as a 0. And this bit you have to be careful with because it's a y minus 4y. So that would be 5y because a minus and a minus there becomes a plus. And the last one is 4 minus 4 minus 6, which is minus 10, which then means that y is going to equal 2 because minus 2 times 5 is equal to 10. Now we're going to substitute that back into one of these equations. So let's just pick this equation. We have to put a 1. So if I get equation 1, that's going to be 3x minus 2 is equal to minus 4. And if I add 2 to each side, that means 3x is equal to minus 2, which means x is equal to minus 2 over 3. So x is equal to minus 2 over 3. Write that there. And y is equal to minus 2. Moving on, the table shows some information about the dress sizes of 25 women. Find the median dress size. So in this case, we can do 25 divided by 2, which is 12.5. So the number of women here is 2. The number of women here is 11. So that's 2 plus 9. Now I'll do 11 plus 8, which is 19. So that's already gone past 12.5. So we know it's not going to be in here, it's not going to be in here, it must be in there, which has a dress size of 12. 3 of the 25 women have a shoe size of 7. Zoe says that if you choose at random one of the 25 women, the probability that she either has a shoe size of 8 or a dress size of 14 is 9 over 25, because 3 over 25 plus 6 over 25 is 9 over 25. Is so correct? No, because the events are mutually exclusive, and what that means is you could have a shoe size 7 and a dress size 14 is possible too. Okay, they can both happen at the same time, both the events. So Daniil bakes 420 cakes. He bakes only vanilla, banana, lemon, and chocolate cakes. 2/7 of the cake are vanilla, 35% of the cakes are banana. The ratio of the number of lemon cakes to the number of chocolate cakes is 4 to 5. Work out the number of lemon cakes Daniel bakes. So in this case, let's tackle the question one by one. So let's start with vanilla and see where we get. So sometimes with these questions, you just have to start, and then that will eventually lead you to the answer. So we have vanilla here. Let's start with what we can. So that's going to be 2 out of 7, out of the 420 are vanilla. Now 7 goes into 420 6 times, and then you can do 6 times 2, and I'll give you 120, but you do have a calculator for this, so you can use that. So that's vanilla done. We know there are 120 vanilla. Moving on, we can look at banana. So if I write banana here, there are 35% of banana, so that's 0.35 times 420, so that is 147. And then we are left with lemon and chocolate. Now, we don't know how many lemon and chocolate there are, so we can write here lemon and chocolate. We know altogether there's 420 cakes. We know how many are vanilla, 120. We know how many are banana, 147. So that means 420 minus 120 plus 147, which is 153. That's how many lemon and chocolate cakes there are. Now we have a ratio. So lemon to chocolate is 4 to 5. So it wants to know how many lemon cakes there are. So there must be 4 out of a total of 9 times 153, which is 68. So that's how many lemon cakes they are. In the diagram, AB, BC, and CD are 3 sides of regular polygon P. So we've been told it's a regular polygon P. We have a square, and then we've been told there's a regular 12-sided hexagon. Show polygon P is a hexagon. Cool. So what do we know about hexagons? So we know that, again, start with what you have and what you know. So hexagon has 6 sides. And we know that the interior angle, so we can figure out. So straight off the bat, you should know that is 90 degrees, because in a square, all sides are equal and all angles are 90 degrees. Okay, so you already know that. Now, the polygon P, the only thing you can figure out with this polygon P is just that there for now. And we'll see how that'll come in handy afterwards. I'll use a different color, actually. So right now, I'm trying to calculate what that is. So that's the interior angle. And to calculate the interior angle, we just need to do 360, divide that by 6. So 360, divide that by 6, and that is 60 degrees. Interior angle, 360, divide that by 6, which is 60 degrees. So that's the interior angle, and that is looking wrong to me, because that angle is more than 90. Sorry, I have made a mistake here. So we first need to work out the sum of the interior angle, which is n minus 2 times 180. So n minus 2 times 180 is the sum of, again, there's self-checking with this as well. I could tell that angle is more than 90 because it's an obtuse angle. So I straight away, when I wrote that down, I was like, that doesn't look quite right. So there's also a case of self-checking. So we are going to do 4 times 180, which is 720, and we are then going to do 720, divide that by the number of sides, which is 6, and each angle is 120. Now that looks a lot better, because that angle, that red angle there, I can tell is more than 90, so 120 degrees is each angle. Cool, so we are done with that. And now I know angles around a point add up to 360, so interior angle is 120 there. And then if I come over here and I look at my 12-sided polygon, again, I can work out the interior angle of this, so that's going to be n minus 2 times 180, which will be 10 times 180, which is 1,800, and then I can do 1,800, and I can divide that by the number of sides, which in this case is 12, and that gives me 150 degrees, and that looks about right because it's close to 150. So finally, I can do 90 plus 120 plus 150, which gives me 360. Well, in order to prove that polygon P is a hexagon, what I should probably do instead is 360 minus the angle of the square minus the plus the angle of the 12-sided polygon is equal to 120 degrees. So and then I can just write angles around a point add up to 120 degrees. And that's our proof. So the proof is that, which is the actual interior angle, the interior angle of the polygon, and then the fact that angles around a point add up to 120. So when I did 360 minus the square and the interior angle, I got the interior angle of the polygon P. So moving on, density of apple juice is 1.05 grams per centimeters cubed. Density of fruit syrup is 1.4 grams per centimeter cubed. The density of carbonated water is 0.99 grams per centimeters cubed. Right, so 25 centimeters cubed of apple juice are mixed with 15 centimeters cubed of fruit syrup and 280 centimeters cubed of carbonated water to make a volume of 320 centimeters cubed. Work out the density of the drink, give your answer to 2 decimal places. So with these type of questions, you want to draw a table because that will make your life a lot easier, and you should have already started thinking about the formula. Density is mass over volume. So coming here, we have in the first column, we have apple, and then we have fruit syrup. So I'll just write fruit syrup, and then we have carbonated water to make a drink. So these all add up to make a drink, okay. And I'll just draw some lines down right the way and a line across. Okay, cool. So we have been told the density of apple juice is 1.05, density of fruit syrup is 1.4, the density of carbonated water is 0.99. We have been told the volume is 25, 15, 280, that adds up to 320. And now what we need to do is work out the density of the drink. So remember, density is mass over volume, so that's going to be the total volume, which we know is 320, and now we just need the total mass. Now let me just write another letter on here, mass. So the mass of apple will be the density times volume, so I'm going to do 1.05 times 25, and that gives me 26.05. For fruit syrup, it's going to be 15 times 1.4, that's 21. Similar fashion, carry on with these, that's going to be 2, and the last one is 324.45. So now I can use this equation. So the total mass is 324.45, the total volume is 320, which becomes 1.01 to 2 decimal places. ABC is a right-angled triangle. Calculate the length of AB. Okay, let's label the side X that we want to find. Give your answer to 3 significant figures. Okay, so you can see it's a right-angled triangle, so we can use SOHCAHTOA here. So that would be, if I label that, that is the opposite, that is the hypotenuse, and this is the adjacent. Now in this case, we don't know anything about this side, so we can cross that out. We can't cross the opposite out because that's what we're trying to find. And on the hypotenuse, we know it's 15. So that to me looks like it's going to be something like this. So the sine rule, so sine 23 is equal to the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 15, which means the answer is 15 times sine 23. And if you now type that into your calculator and hit enter, you will end up with 5.86 to 3 significant figures. Moving on, a square with sides of length x centimeters is inside a circle. Each vertex of the square is on the circumference of the circle. The area of the circle is 49 centimeters cubed. Work out the value of x. Okay, so we have been told that there's a circle and it has a square inside it. So awesome. And we've been told each vertex of the square is on the circumference, so I'm just going to position this so each corner is touching the circumference. That's about right. It's a little bit off, but you can get the point, and I think that's the best I can do. Cool. As we've been told, a square with sides of length x, so that's x there, and that's x there. Each vertex, yep. The area of the circle is 49 centimeters squared, yep. work out the value of x. Okay, so what we can start with is, okay, we've been told the area and it's a circle and that's in there. So you should already start to be thinking about, the circle's going to have some sort of a center, it'll have some sort of a radius. So we can think about, well, if you look at just the circle, we know that the area is 49 and we know pi r squared is the area of a circle. So from this we can find the radius. So the radius is going to be the square root of 49 over pi, which is 3.9493. Cool. So we know that's the radius. So the radius is going to be the length from the center to the circumference, which is the exact same as the length from here to there. So now at this point you have to sort of start thinking on your feet, and you have to remember that it's a square. All angles in a square are right angle triangles, are 90 degrees, and then you can start to think about right angle triangles. So what we actually have here is something, if I draw that like that, that looks like that, where that is x, and this bit here is 2r, because if that is the radius, that is also the radius. And hopefully you can start to see that this can be solved using the Pythagoras theorem. So that's going to be x squared plus x squared is equal to 2r squared. So if I do 2r squared, so if I do 2 times 3.9493, hit enter and square that, that gives me 62. So that means 2x squared is equal to 62.387, etc. Which then means if I divide that by 2 and square root it, x is equal to 5.592, 3 significant figures. The box plot shows information about the distribution of the amounts of money spent by some male students on holiday. Work out the interquartile range for the amount of money spent by these male students. So the interquartile range is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. So in this case, if I get my ruler out, the lower quartile is there, which is, so it's going up by 20 each time. So that looks to me like 120, 30, 40, 150. So that is 150 for the lower quartile. Let me just fix that. And then the upper quartile is 330. So if you take them two away, you end up with 180. So let me just get rid of my ruler. On the table below shows the information about the distribution of some students and the amount of money they spent by some female students on their holiday. So, okay, we've got some data on the smallest, largest, median, lower quartile, upper quartile. On the grid above, draw a box plot for the information in this table. Right, okay, so if I try to keep... So the smallest is 60, so let's start with that. If I get my ruler out, and I can just draw that somewhere down here. So that's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Or let's keep that to 90 degrees. And of course do this with a pencil. So that's that. And the largest is 650. That's going to be in between them two. The median is 300. The upper quartile is 350. And the lower quartile is 180, so that goes there. And then remember to join them all together. So just like the one above, draw a line there, draw a line there, and then a line connecting that, and a line connecting that and that. Cool, so you should end up with something that looks like that. So Chris says the box plots show that female students spend more money than male students. Now, the way you normally draw conclusions on these is using the median. So we can see the median is here for boys and the median is here for girls, and the median is higher. So based on that, is Chris correct? Yes. The median, and then you'd go on to comment and say the median for girls, which is 180, which is 300, sorry, is greater than boys, which is 250. So that's that done. Nobody invests £6,000 for 5 years. The investment gets compound interest of X% per annum. At the end of 5 years, the investment is worth £8,029.35. Work out the value of X. So with these type of questions, usually if this was given to us as a number, say it was given as 3%, the first thing you'd normally do is you do 100 plus 3, which gives you 103%, and then you divide that by 100, which is 1.03, and then you'll multiply it. So we'll do the exact same here. So you have 100 plus X. Now that just equals 100 plus X, because I can't add the two together. Then I would divide this by 100. So that looks like 1 plus 0.01x. These are both the exact same thing. But I've just turned this into a decimal. And then what you do is you do 6,000. You times that by this figure in here. So that'll be 1 plus 0.01x. You raise that to the power of the number of years. And that is equal to 8029.35. And now, with a little bit of rearranging, I'll have 1 plus 0.01x to the power of 5. Divide each side by 6,000. Divide this side by 6,000. And I'll end up with 8029.35. Divide that by 6,000. And then to get rid of this power, since we just do the opposite. So if it was squared, we do square root. So in this case, it'll be 1 plus 0.01x. And then it'll be this to the power of 5. 8029.35, divide that by 6,000. And then once you get your answer, you subtract it from 1 and divide it by 0.01, and you would end up with X is equal to 6. Well, it'll end up with 5.99999 is what I ended up on my calculator, but yeah, that's 6. And moving on. Jeff is choosing a shrub and rose tree for his garden. At the garden centre, there are 17 different types of shrub and some rose trees. Jeff says there are 215 ways to choose one shrub and one rose tree. Could Jeff be correct? Well, we've been given just two numbers in this question, that one there and that one there. And if you see how many combinations we can get out of this, so that'll be 215, divide that by 7, let me just type that in, equals 12.64. No, because 12.64 is not a whole number. You can't have 12.6 plants. Okay, next one. A, B, C, and D lie in order on a straight line. We've been given some ratios. A to B and B to D is 1 to 5. A to C and C to D is 7 to 11. Work out A to B, B to C, and C to D. Okay, firstly, it's a straight line. Let's just draw that on. Awesome. And then let's label it. So that's A there. We can see the ratio is 1 to 5, so that's quite a big gap. So if this is A to B, and then D is going to be all the way down there. Okay. And then C is, A to C is 7, and then C to D is 11. So C is closer to A than it is to D, so we can put C somewhere there. Right, so now let's write them ratios on. So for A to B, we are told it is 1 to 5. Sorry, not 1 out of 5. It's 1 out of 6. That's the distance from there to there. And we know the distance from there to there as a ratio is 5 out of 6. So I should probably write that in a similar manner. So that's 1 out of 6. And then we know from A to C is 7 out of 18. And then C to D is 11 out of 18. Okay, and then they want A to B, and then they want us to work out A to B, B to C, and C to D. Now, hopefully one thing you can spot is that the denominators can be made the same. So at the bottom, we've got the denominator at 18, and at the top, we've got the denominator at 6. Now, I can write this as, if I multiply the top and bottom by 3, that becomes 15 over 18. And this becomes 3 over 18. Now that the fractions are the same, we can say a to b, which is, let me just get my highlighter, which is that bit there, a to b, that's 3 out of 18. C to D, let me get my highlighter right again, is that bit there. That's going to be 11 out of 18. And then we're left with this bit. Now, we don't quite know what this is because we're not given an exact size for it. You can see the lines overlap, but hopefully you can see we can calculate that by doing, let me just get my pen out. If we can just do, to get B to C, we can do 7 out of 18 minus 3 out of 18. So that's this, take away this, and that will give me this gap here. Well, from there to there. And then that becomes 4 over 18. So as a ratio, this becomes 3 to 4 to 11. Because the denominators are all the same, I can multiply them all by 18. Next question, write down the 3 inequalities that define the shaded region. So if I was to highlight this just to make it very clear, so that goes from there to there, and then there to there, and then there to there finally. So if you start off with the easier one, so that's that there, we can see the line right there is going to be y is greater than minus 2. The line crosses the y-axis only, and it must be greater than because it's shaded above. The next one we can look at is this one right here. It crosses, so remember the equation of line is y is equal to mx plus c. C is the y-intercept, so that's where the line crosses the y-axis. Here it crosses at 0, so that's going to be 0. So, and the gradient is 1 because we go across 1 and we go up 1. So that line is y is equal to x. So in this case, again, it'll be y is greater than x because it's shaded above that line. And finally, we are left with, if I use a different color, this line up here. So in this case, we have y is equal to mx plus c. We can see c is going to be plus 1 because that's where the line crosses the x-axis. And then for the gradient, if you go across 1, we have to go up by a half. So it goes up by a half every time we go across 1. So the gradient must be a half x. And this, in this case, it's going to be y is less than a half x plus 1 because it's shaded below that line. So for the next one, we have x squared minus 16 over 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. So the top is rather simple because it's the difference of two squares. Hopefully you spotted that. So that's the top. However, the bottom, so we can do 2 times minus 12. So 2 times minus 12 gives me minus 24. What two numbers do I multiply to give me minus 24? That add or subtract to give me minus 5. So that's going to be 2 and 12, 3 and 8. So I can see if I have minus 8 and a plus 3, that will give me the minus 5. And that will also give me the minus 28. So that then becomes 2x squared minus 8x plus 3x plus 12. And then I can write that as 2x bracket x minus 4 plus 3x minus 4. And then that becomes 2x plus 3 and then x minus 4. I can subtract, cancel that, and then I am left with x plus 4 over 2x plus 3. Make v the subject of the formula. So to make v the subject of the formula, we can do w is equal to 15t minus 2v all over v. We can now move the v over. Normally with these type of questions, you want to get rid of the fraction. So we can do v, w is equal to 15. We can expand the brackets, 15t minus 30v. Now you want to get the v on its own. So there's a v here and there's a v here. So let's move the v's so they're all on the same side. So that will be vw plus 30v is equal to 15t. Now we want to factor out the v, so we can do that. And finally, we just want to divide each side by w plus 30, so that will become v is equal to 15t over w plus 30. Moving on to the next one, the area of a rectangle ABC is 6 root 2 meters squared. Calculate the value of x. Give your answer to the correct 3 significant figures. So this could be a hint at some point, because it does say calculated 3 significant figures, so we will need a calculator to get that. And other than that, the area of this triangle, because we've got two sides and an angle between them, so the area is going to equal a half AB sine C, where we can say that's A. I'll use a different color actually, because they've also used, we can say that's A, that's B, and that's C. So if I now sub that in, that will become, let me get my pen back, a half. Also I can sub in the area, because they've told me that in the question right there. A half AB, which will be 2x minus 1, x plus 3, and then sine 45. So the first thing I can do here is sine 45 times a half on my calculator, and that gives me 2. That's without root 2 over 4. That's without even expanding these brackets, and that's x plus 3, 6 root 2. I can now move this over there, so I can times each side by 4 over root 2, and then that becomes nicely 24, 2x minus 1, and an x plus 3. If I now expand that, we have 2x squared minus plus 6x minus x minus 3. And if I click the like terms, we end up with 2x squared plus 5x minus 3, 24. And if I subtract 24 from each side, I end up with 2x squared plus 5x minus 27 is equal to 0. Now remember, before you go off and start factorizing this by doing 2 times 27, remember this bit that I told you at the start, there's a reason why the questions told us that. So that should be a clear hint of using the quadratic formula at this point. So if you sub that straight into the quadratic formula, so that'll be minus b plus minus root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now this will obviously give you two values. So if I just label what a, b, and c are, that's a, that's b, and that's c. This will obviously give you two values because you have a plus and a minus. But remember, x can't be negative because the length of a side cannot be negative. So if I was to write out what you'd put in there, I normally like to have brackets around any negative values. So that'll be minus b, which is 5, plus minus b squared, which is 5 squared, minus 4 times a times c minus 27 over 2a, which is 2 times 2. And the positive value you get out of that is 2.63 to 3 significant figures. So with the next question, it says, using x n plus 1 is equal to minus 2 minus 4 over x squared n, with x0 minus 2.5, find the values of x1, x2, and x3. So they've told us what x0 is. So x1 is going to be minus 2 minus 4 over minus 2.5 squared. And if you sub that into your calculator, you get minus 2.64. The next one is going to be minus 2 minus 4 over minus 2.64 squared, which gives you minus 2.57. And finally, we have minus 2 minus 4 over minus 2.57 squared, which gives you minus 2.6037. Explain the relationship between x1, x2, x3, and the equation x cubed minus 2x squared minus plus 4. So if I write down the equation that was in the question at the top here, so we do have it here as well. So that's x is equal to minus 2 minus 4 over x squared. And if I now come down here, if I rewrite this, so that's x cubed plus 2x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. Now it's asking for what the relationship is, so let's see if we can get this to look a little bit like that. So if I move the 4 over, so that's x cubed plus 2x squared is equal to minus 4. If I divide each side by x squared, because I can see the denominator there is x squared, so that'll be x plus 2 is equal to minus 4 over x squared. If I move the 2 over, that's minus 2 minus 4 over x squared. So 1 mark is just for doing this. And the second mark is for stating that iteration is estimation of the solution, because that's what you're doing at the top, you're iterating to get to the answer. A train travelled along a track 110 minutes, correct to the nearest 5 minutes. Jake finds the track is 270 kilometers long. He assumes it's correct to the nearest 10 kilometers. Could the average speed of the train have been greater than 180 kilometers? You must show how you get your answer. Okay, so we've been given time, but it's got bounds because it's to the nearest 5 minutes. So if I look at time here, so it's 110 minutes, but it's got bounds of 5 minutes. So if I divide that by 2, that's 2.5. So that means this has an upper bound of 112.5 and it has a lower bound of 107.5 minutes. And then it's the same with distance. If I write distance here, distance is 270. Okay, 270, it's got a bound of 10, divide that by 2, 5. So that means it has an upper bound of 275 kilometers and it has a lower bound of 265 kilometers. Now we know that speed is distance over time, so to work out the max speed, I'll need the highest possible value for distance and I'll need the lowest possible value for time. And if you put that into your calculator, then you get 2.558, but that's in minutes because we're working in minutes here, but the answer needs to be in hours because he's given us in hours, so times that by 60 and that becomes 153.488, and then your answer is no. And of course you write a line saying no, it could not have been greater than 160. So Jake's assumption was wrong. The track was measured correct to the nearest 5 kilometers. Okay, so if you go up, we did 10, his is now measured to 5. So that means the distance will decrease. Explain how this could affect the answer to part A. So, well, the distance would decrease whilst the time remains the same. So speed would decrease. And you can figure that out by looking at this bit. So essentially the speed will decrease. So since the denominator is decreasing, the answer will also decrease because the time remains the same. Question 18. A, B, and C are points on a circle of radius 5 centimeters. Center O. DA and DC are tangents to the circle. DO is 9 centimeters. Work out the length of arc ABC. Give your answer correct to the nearest 3 significant figures. So we're interested in, if I just get my highlighter out, they're interested in ABC. So they're interested in, oh, I've gone a bit off there, but they're interested in the length of that arc. And I'm going to guess that we probably need to figure out what the length of this arc is as well in order to get there. And then the total arc is just going to be the circumference of the circle. So we can always start with what we can easily find. So we know that the total length, so that's like the full circle, that's going to be the circumference. So we can go with the circumference is 2 pi r, which is 2 times pi times radius. And if you do that, you end up with 31.4159 centimeters. So we've got the total length. We just need to now subtract that by the bit in yellow, and then we'll get the bit in green. So we now need to calculate the bit in yellow. So we know that this is 5. We also know that this is going to be 5 because it's the radius. So you can work out this angle. Yeah, so if you can work out this angle here, because they've told us this full length is 9. So let me just rub that off. This full length, the dotted length, is 9. We know it's a tangent there. A tangent meets a circle at 90 degrees. We need to work out what this angle is. I'll call it x. So if I use SOHCAHTOA again, so this will be the opposite. This would be, let me just use a different color actually. This would be the opposite. This would be the hypotenuse, and this would be the adjacent. I don't know anything here, so I can ignore that. So that leaves me with CAH, Let me just change the color of my pen. So that becomes cos x is equal to 5/9. And then if you do that in your calculator, you end up with 56.2510114. And then to work out the length of the arc, we can just do 2 pi r, but it's not the full circle this time. It's going to be 56.251 divided by 360, and that will give you just this bit here. If I draw on, that will give you this arc length. We'll then times that by 2, and that will give us both of these. So that equals 4.9088. If I now times that by 2, that gives me 9.82. And now I need to subtract that from 31.4159 to get the green length. So this is the total yellow length. So if I now go back up here, I can do the total 31.4159 minus the yellow length, which was 9.82, and that gives me the green length, which is 21.6 centimeters. The colors can help, that's why I've colored this in quite a bit. So solve 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is greater than 0. So you can always replace the sign with an equals and then put the sign back in at the end if needed, if that makes your life a bit easier. So that'll be 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Two numbers that multiply together to give me minus 4. Where did the minus 4 come from? I did 2 times minus 2. So two numbers that multiply together to give minus 4, that add or subtract to give it plus 3. So that must be minus 1 and plus 4. So if you write that in here, that will become 2x squared plus 4x minus 1x minus 2 is equal to 0, which then becomes 2x bracket x plus 2 minus 1x plus 2 still equal to 0. So we are left with x plus 2 and 2x minus 1 is equal to 0 now. So in order for this to be 0, x is either going to equal minus 2 or x is going to equal 1 over 2. Now we need to write the result as an inequality. You can always sub this x equal to half and equal to minus half into the equation above and see what result you get. When you sub it in, you'll get 0. And then if you try subbing in, for example, 0.6, you'll see the answer is greater than 0. So x is going to be greater than a half, or x is going to be less than minus 2. And like I said, you can always sub in a value less than minus 2 into the equation above to see if that gives you a value greater than 0 to check this. So the equation of a curve is y is equal to a to the power of x, ax. A is a point on the curve where the curve intersects the y-axis. A is a point where the curve intersects the y-axis. Okay, so a graph like this normally looks something like that. So A is a point there. So we know at A, the value of x is 0. So if x is 0, anything to the power of 0 is 1. So when x is 0, y must be 1. Alright, the equation of a circle is x squared plus y squared is equal to 16. Now you've got to remember, whenever they tell you the equation of a circle, the formula x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. So that means in this case the radius is actually 4. The circle C is translated by the vector 3, 0. So that means it hasn't moved in the x-axis, it's moved up by 3 in the y-axis. And they want us to sketch that. So if I draw that on here, there, and there. So originally 0 is here, they've moved it up by 3. So that means the center is now at 3. We know it's got a radius of 4. So this must be 7. And then this must be minus 1, because 3 plus 4 is 7. And 3 minus 4 is minus 1. And then my circle will look something like that. Not sure why it's not drawn a circle there. Let me just try again. There we go. It would look something like that. And the marks are also drawing on them points for the center. So you can always go on and write them on the side too. Center at 0, 3. And that is it. That is the end of this video. Hope you found that useful.